My mom gave everything my dad owned to a man I'd never met. Then the accounts drained. The house changed hands. My mom swore it was love. I thought grief made her reckless. I thought that was the betrayal. I was wrong, because what I found buried in the attic changed everything. The funeral was on a Thursday. It rained the entire morning. I remember standing there, suit soaked at the shoulders, thinking nothing could feel heavier than that moment. Turns out I was dead wrong. My dad passed away suddenly, a heart attack at 62. No warning signs, no lingering illness. One minute he was watching a ball game in his chair, the next he was gone. EMTs couldn't do anything. My mom called me sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. I dropped everything and drove 5 hours straight to get back home. We were close, not in the cheesy dad was my best friend kind of way, but real close. He was quiet, practical, always had a plan, but never overbearing. You'd only realize how much he did when you started trying to live without him. That funeral? It felt like a blur. But I remember one thing that didn't sit right. My mom wasn't just grieving. She looked distracted, fidgety, like she was waiting for something else to happen. Then 2 days later, I found out what. My cousin Sarah pulled me aside after the memorial and said, "Hey, did your mom tell you about the house?" "What house?" I asked. "The beach house. Your dad's place in Cedar Rock." I froze. I didn't even know the man had kept that place. It was where we used to go every summer when I was a kid. Last I'd heard, they rented it out to pay the taxes. Apparently, my dad never sold it. He just stopped going after he got sick of dealing with upkeep. And now, it was sold, quietly, a month before he died. I hadn't heard a word, so I asked my mom about it. That's when she said the words that still make my stomach twist. "Oh honey, your stepdad and I decided it was better to liquidate some things." I said, "Stepdad?" That was the first time I heard about Jerry. Apparently, my mom had been seeing him for about a year. Secretly, while dad was alive. They reconnected through some church group she joined during COVID. Jerry lost his wife, she lost her emotional connection with dad, yada yada. Suddenly she had someone new. She didn't say it outright, but the timeline didn't sit right. At best, it was emotional cheating. At worst, well, let's just say I started asking more questions. The next few weeks were chaos. Probate stuff, lawyers. I was the only child, so I thought I'd be the one dealing with dad's will. But nope, mom had power of attorney. Everything was joint. Every asset, every bank account, every investment transferred to her the second he died. She inherited everything, and she handed it straight to Jerry. This man, I didn't even know his last name yet, suddenly had my father's retirement account under his name. I know because I checked the estate files when I finally got access. My mom had changed all the beneficiaries 2 months before dad passed. Jerry was listed on everything she had control over. When I confronted her, she got all misty-eyed and said, "You know, your father didn't want you to worry about money. He wanted me to be taken care of. Jerry's helping me." Jerry, by the way, is 15 years younger than her, drives a black Escalade, wears gold chains and fake laughs at everything he says. The guy talks like a motivational speaker, but there's something behind his eyes, like he's always calculating. And here's the kicker. He moved into my dad's house less than 3 weeks after the funeral. I came by one weekend to help clean out the garage my mom had asked, and there was Jerry, shirtless, drinking beer on my dad's lawn chair, feet up on the grill, like he owned the place. I remember standing there, holding my dad's old socket set in my hand, just frozen. "You must be Chris," he said. "Heard a lot about you." I didn't respond. "I'm keeping the shed open for now," he added, like I needed his permission to be in my childhood home. I went back to my car. I didn't say a word to my mom that day, just left. Things kept spiraling from there. Over the next month, every time I tried to talk about dad's estate, what his wishes might have been, what we should do with the rest of his belongings, my mom brushed me off. "Honey, Jerry's helping me manage things. You're still young. You've got your whole life to make your own money. I'm 29. I've been working since I was 19. Dad and I had talked about the business he wanted to leave me. A small contracting firm he built from the ground up. But guess what? It's been merged into some LLC Jerry owns, without my name on anything. No will, no trust, no safety net, nothing." And that's when I started digging. The more I looked into Jerry, the more the alarms went off. The man has 2 prior bankruptcies, a lawsuit from a former partner over misappropriated funds. He was even arrested once in Nevada for fraud, though it didn't stick. I brought all of this to my mom. I showed her court records, screenshots, everything. She looked me straight in the face and said, "Chris, you need to stop. Jerry is a good man. He's been through a lot. Don't make this harder than it already is." I don't know what hold this guy has over her. Love? Manipulation? She's completely blind to it. It's like she's been hypnotized. Every time I say his name, she gets defensive. Any concern I raise, she says I'm just bitter. Dad had a safe in the basement, always kept it locked. Growing up, I never saw what was inside, just knew it mattered. I went down to look a week ago, thinking maybe I could find something to prove what Dad really wanted. The safe was gone. When I asked, Mom said Jerry thought it was unsafe to keep cash and documents in the house, that he moved them somewhere safer. And it didn't come from Jerry. It came from my dad. 3 days after I found out the safe was gone, I got a voicemail from a lawyer. His name was Glenn Marwick. He introduced himself as my dad's personal attorney, a name I'd never heard before. Apparently, Glenn worked out of a tiny office about 30 minutes from where my parents lived. Said he wasn't the family attorney, just someone Dad used privately for off-record legal matters. I called back immediately. After a few verification steps, Glenn told me, "Your father left behind a private letter for you. He instructed I deliver it only after his death and only if certain things changed within the estate." Those things have changed. I asked him what that meant, but he said he wasn't allowed to give details details over the phone. So I drove there the next day. The office was nothing fancy, second floor above a shuttered insurance agency with a single flickering fluorescent light buzzing in the ceiling. Glenn was older, mid-60s, the kind of guy who still wore suspenders and used a typewriter for drafts. He pulled out a sealed envelope from a locked file cabinet. It was thick, yellowed, with my name written on the front in my dad's handwriting. No mistaking it. Inside was a letter, handwritten, for pages long. I read it once, then again, and halfway through the second time, I realized my dad knew what was going to happen. I'll give you the short version of what the letter said because the tone was heavy and straight to the point. Chris, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and things didn't go the way I hoped. I tried to fix things before it was too late, but your mother wouldn't listen. She's not a bad person, son, but she's lost in her need to be loved again. If Jerry's still around, then listen to me carefully. Don't trust him. He's not who he says he is. I've seen things, heard things. He's planning to drain everything and disappear. I tried to confront her about it and she said I was being paranoid. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That was a mistake. There's a box, not the safe. Jerry convinced her to get rid of that. I hid another box, metal, blue, with a false bottom. It's in the attic behind the vent near the crawl space. Use the crowbar if you have to. In that box, you'll find everything. The proof, the passwords, the truth. The rest of the letter was more personal stuff about how proud he was, how he wished he had more time, how I should trust my gut. I didn't even leave Glenn's office before heading straight back to the house. When I got there, Jerry's Escalade was parked in the driveway, engine running. I didn't go inside. I went straight to the garage, grabbed a flashlight and a crowbar from the old workbench, and climbed into the attic like I'd done 100 times as a kid. The vent wasn't hard to find. It was dusty, covered in cobwebs, but loose. Behind it, the metal box. I cracked it open and my stomach dropped. Inside were a thick manila folder stuffed with receipts, screenshots, and what looked like printed emails. A USB stick taped to the lid. 3 small envelopes marked trust account, passwords, and insurance. And one more note, if Jerry ever touches the company, this will burn him. I didn't even finish reading everything before I took it back to my apartment. I didn't feel safe in that house. Over the next 2 nights, I went through every document in that box. Here's what I found. Jerry had a fake name on record in several of his older financial filings. Jerome Faulkner wasn't his birth name. His real name? Jeremy Field. That fraud charge I found earlier? It was just one of 3. 2 others were under his original name before he legally changed it in Texas back in 2010. He'd done this before. There were articles printed from local newspapers, stories about a man who swept up a grieving widow, married her quickly, then disappeared after funneling money into a private account. The articles never named him, but one had a photo. I held it up to a photo of Jerry I'd snapped at the funeral. Same guy, just younger and with different glasses. There were hidden bank accounts. My dad had started moving some of his business income into an offshore account 3 years ago, just in case. I didn't know this, but the company still had money, a lot more than I thought. And based on a note in the trust account envelope, I'm listed as the beneficiary on that one. Not my mom, not Jerry. But here's the worst part. My dad suspected Jerry of poisoning him. Yeah, you read that right. He didn't come right out and say it, but one page in the folder had medical records from a private clinic he visited. Tests he didn't tell anyone about. His liver enzymes were off the charts 3 months before his death. He circled a line that said foreign compounds detected, trace amounts of digitalis. Digitalis, a plant-based compound used in heart meds. In the wrong dosage, it causes, you guessed it, sudden cardiac arrest. He wrote in the margin, I don't take this. Why is it in my system? I put the page down and sat in silence for almost an hour. That's when I knew I had to get the USB drive checked. What was on the USB broke everything open. Surveillance footage from inside the house. A hidden camera in the living room aimed at Dad's desk. Dated 2 months before he died. I still don't know how he set it up, but I watched the whole thing. There was Jerry, digging through papers while my dad was out, taking photos of bank statements, making phone calls, whispering. Then there was audio. Jerry on the phone saying, she's almost signed everything over. Once she does, we don't wait. 6 months tops, we're gone. Aruba or Portugal. Doesn't matter as long as we're out before the sun starts asking questions. That was all I needed to hear. I haven't told my mom yet. Not because I want to protect her, she's made her choices, but because if I go to her now, Jerry might disappear before I can act. So I'm planning something strategic, and I just found someone else who might be on my side. My dad's old business partner. He called me last night out of the blue. And what he told me, let's just say, this goes way deeper than I thought. Dad's old business partner called me Martin Flint. Salt and pepper hair, voice like gravel. The kind of guy who used to show up to our house with old-fashioned donuts and grease under his fingernails. He and my dad ran the construction company together for over 20 years before Martin retired a few years ago. Turns out that retirement wasn't voluntary. I wasn't going to get involved, but I saw Jerry's name on the transfer paperwork last week, and I thought, no way in hell Mike would ever sign something like that. Mike was my dad. Martin said he got a notice from the Secretary of State's office about a name change filing on their old LLC. The company had been renamed quietly from FNM Contracting to Iron Pine Group LLC, a brand new entity with Jerry Fields, yes, Fields, not Faulkner, listed as majority owner. My mom was the secondary signer. Dad's name? Gone. Martin asked if we could meet in person. I said absolutely. We met at a diner just outside town. He brought a thick folder of documents and copies of the filing paperwork. He slid them across the table deal and said, your dad and I had a deal. If anything ever happened to one of us, the other would help the family. But Jerry's not family. And this is theft. He wasn't wrong. Turns out Jerry had been slowly embedding himself into the company's financials for almost a year. He first offered to help with admin stuff for mom after dad's back started bothering him, offering to set up QuickBooks, hire freelancers, smooth out billing. She thought he was being helpful. All the while, he was redirecting payments, cutting deals with new vendors, and preparing to rebrand the whole company under his name. And he wasn't alone. Martin slid over one last sheet. Recognize this name? I looked. It was a contractor group listed as Silver Timber Holding. I shook my head. Martin sighed. That's Jerry's alias. He used that name to bid on a federal building project your dad's company was already working on. Underbid us. Then took the contract after manipulating the paperwork. Yes, Jerry stole one of their largest active jobs while pretending to help. The man played both sides and walked away with the money. It gets worse. Martin suspected, though couldn't confirm, that Jerry had started cozying up to one of the women working in the company's old accounting department. Said she quit suddenly 3 months ago after refusing to give over a company password. Her name was Dana. I remembered her. She came to the house once with an invoice when I was still in college. Quiet woman. Always polite. Martin gave me her last known number. I tried it. Disconnected. But you know who did remember Dana? My dad's private lawyer, Glenn. I called Glenn and asked if Dana had ever been involved with my dad's private accounts. Turns out, yes, she helped dad digitize his personal files 2 years ago. And get this, Glenn was the one who recommended her because she used to work in his law office before switching to bookkeeping. I told Glenn about the USB, about the hidden recordings. I asked him point blank, what do I do now? He paused, then said the one word I wasn't expecting. Record him. I thought, you mean again? He said, no, I mean confront him. Bait him. Get him to admit to what he's done. You already have enough for suspicion. But if you get his voice on tape confessing, even partially, that's your nail in the coffin. Because otherwise your mother will never believe it. I knew he was right, so I set it up. The next weekend, I asked my mom if I could take her to lunch. Just us. She was thrilled. Said she missed spending time with me. That was the bait. Halfway through lunch, I casually brought up Jerry. I said I had some questions about the company, how the name changed, what she signed. She waved it off. Oh, Jerry took care of all that. He's been handling the stressful stuff so I can rest. So I said I want to ask him some questions. Privately. Just me and him. Man to man. She smiled. Of course, sweetheart. He'd love that. No clue I had a recorder in my coat pocket. The meeting was the next day. At the house. I arrived at 6 p.m. Jerry greeted me with his usual smug grin, drink in hand. I sat across from him at the dining room table and said, I know you're not Jerry Faulkner. I know you're Jeremy Fields. I know you changed the LLC name. I know you redirected contracts. And I know what you said on the phone about leaving before I started asking questions. He didn't say a word at first. Then he smirked. And this man, this absolute sociopath, leaned back and said, you're too late. Your dad's name is gone. Your mom gave me everything. I'm legally clean. You have nothing. I said, what about Aruba? That wiped the smirk right off. He stood up. You little snake. I stood too. I've got your voice, Jerry. You just admitted to manipulating a widow. Fraud. Abuse of trust. He pointed at me and said something I'll never forget. She picked me. Not you. Your dad's dead. And you? You're nobody. Then he stormed upstairs. I left immediately. Took the recording straight to Glenn. We filed an injunction that night. And 2 days later, we froze every account with Jerry's name on it. But that was just the beginning. Because while going through the rest of my dad's files, I found something even more disturbing. An insurance policy. One that named me as the beneficiary. And it had been altered. Falsified. Signed not by my dad, but by someone pretending to be him. We had a handwriting expert compare signatures. The results? Forged. And Jerry is the prime suspect. 3 days after we froze the accounts, Jerry vanished. Gone. No car. No credit card activity. Cell phone turned off. At first, I thought he was hiding out somewhere local, maybe waiting for things to cool down. But then Glenn called and said Jerry had tried to access one of the remaining trust funds from an IP address in South Carolina. He wasn't laying low, he was running. So I called the sheriff's department. Then I called Martin. Then I called the investigator Glenn had connected me with. And we pushed. Turns out Jerry had a warrant from his previous identity, Jeremy Field. Fraud, impersonation, wire transfer abuse. The cases had gone cold, but when our affidavit and documents hit the system, it lit up like a Christmas tree. Within 48 hours, he was found in a freaking RV parked behind a convenience store in North Charleston with $12,400 in cash, a burner phone, 2 fake passports, and my dad's old Rolex still in the glove compartment. They arrested him on the spot. I got the call at 2 a.m. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. By 10 a.m., the story broke on the local news. Man accused of defrauding widow arrested in multi-state scam investigation. Jeremy was caught, but here's the part that flipped my stomach. My mom bailed him out. That's right. After everything, after the audio recording, the forged documents, the shell companies, the police reports, she emptied her personal savings and took out a loan on the house to pay his $50,000 bail. When I found out, I drove straight to her place. She answered the door like nothing was wrong. She looked tired. Empty almost. I said, what are you doing? He was going to leave you. He was going to take everything. We have him on tape. She just whispered, you're wrong about him. He said you set him up. Set him up. I blinked. You think I forged Dad's signature? You think I hacked the company and staged all that? She didn't answer. Instead, she closed the door. I stood there for a full minute just staring. Including half that home were now frozen son under criminal investigation. So I did the only thing I could think of. I moved her out. I told her there were threats, that someone might come by. I lied, honestly, I just didn't want her in that house anymore. It wasn't safe, not for her, not for me. I packed her things, rented a tiny Airbnb, payment receipts, all linked to Jerry. But one thing stood out. One name, C. Hargrove. It popped up in an email exchange dated 2 years ago. Jerry had written, C. Hargrove will handle the transfers once the widow signs. The widow, my mom. I asked Dana, who's C. Hargrove? She hesitated, then said, he's a judge. And not just any judge, the judge overseeing my dad's probate case. I felt sick. She continued, I couldn't prove it, but I think Jerry was paying him, bribing him to fast-track transfer. Look at the dates. The same week my dad's estate was officially closed, Jerry paid a sell blow. A week before the hearing, I got another letter. Not from Dad this time. From Jerry, handwritten, sent through the jail. Here's what it said. I'm not sorry. Your father wasn't smart. He thought he could see through people. He couldn't see through your mother. I never had to do anything to her, you know. She came to me. I didn't take anything. She gave it all aloud. I signed every document. I gave him permission to use the funds. My son has a personal grudge and he's twisting this whole thing. I stared at her like I didn't know her anymore. And in that moment, I didn't. The DA tried to recover. Asked if she knew Jerry had previous fraud charges. She said she can play. It's not elegant, but it's real. I asked what he meant. He said he'd found a second life insurance policy my dad had taken out privately through a different bank. One he never told my mom about. The beneficiary? Me. It wasn't much, $75K. But it was enough. Enough to cover Glenn's legal, definitely the identity fraud and passport possession. But my mom? She cut contact with me complete. Told her friends I was greedy and obsessed. She sold off her jewelry to help Jerry's legal fund. Moved into a small apartment near the jail so she could visit weekly. I still don't understand it. She always loved my dad. Or I thought she did. But grief does strange things to people. Loneliness? Even worse. All I know is I'm out. I've gone no contact. Permanently. I still visit Dad's grave sometimes. I keep the original letter in a lockbox, along with the USB and every court filing. And every time I read it, one line stands out. Trust your gut. If you feel like something's wrong, it probably is. He was right. He didn't live long enough to see what happened, but he saw it coming. And thanks to him, Jerry's not walking free. Not this time.